Hi, I'm Jeric.
Hi, I'm Lorna.
We're going on a journey to discover the legacy of the American Legion
and how that history of the Legion is shaping the vision for our future. The American Legion was conceived at a time when military preparedness was at a low point in the U.S. Armed Forces. The letter to the editor of Adventure magazine in 1914 warned that the United States was soon going to find itself in a man-sized fight and needed trained officers and specialists ready to go. The letter came to Adventure magazine from a world traveler named E.D. Cook, who called for the assembly of a volunteer organization that would defy the isolationists and prepare America in a case it should be drawn into war. Advertisements were placed in newspapers, calling on anyone with specialized skills, tools, vehicles, weapons, experience, or any previous military training to join the volunteer organization. It would be called American Legion Incorporated.
More than 24,000 volunteers submitted their names and credentials to join American Legion Incorporated prior to January 1st, 1917. In defiance of the isolationists, many of them were conducting military training exercises at a privately funded camp near Plattsburgh, New York, under the leadership of Major General Leonard Wood, former Army Chief of Staff under President Theodore Roosevelt. One Plattsburgh trainee was the former president's son, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., who would go on to help found the American Legion as a veterans organization immediately after the war.
Adventure magazine managed membership records for American Legion Incorporated and issued cards, each with a star-shaped logo that would resemble the American Legion emblem that was later patented in December 1919. In January 1917, as it became clear the United States would soon enter the fighting in Europe, American Legion Incorporated turned its roster over to the U.S. War Department. In April of that year, the United States officially declared itself a Western ally in the war to end all wars, and American Expeditionary Forces General John Pershing had a ready-made corps of willing specialists and trained officers thanks to Plattsburgh and American Legion Incorporated. And so began what would become the American Legion's initial purpose to strengthen the nation through preparedness, and in doing so, promote peace and security against multiple threats, foreign and domestic.
After the armistice of November 11, 1918, that ended World War I, former American Legion Incorporated and Plattsburgh alums met in France to discuss their combat experiences and how a new association of wartime veterans might improve U.S. military security, promote peace, and defeat oppressive regimes in the future. One of the new organization's first missions was to appoint a military policy committee. At the first American Legion National Convention on November 10, 1919, that committee reported that it favored universal military training, or UMT, but it strongly opposed compulsory universal military service during peacetime. They preferred a relatively small standing army, backed by a trained and prepared force of citizen soldiers.
The American Legion did not fully achieve the goal of UMT, but the pursuit of it fueled many early initiatives of the organization at the community, state, and national levels. Sponsorship and support for junior ROTC in high schools across America. Sponsorship of Boy Scout units nationwide. Physical fitness activities for young people. Support for education systems to improve literacy. Competitive marksmanship programs. And development of multiple youth programs to instill a message of American patriotism, constitutional understanding, flag respect, and promotion of the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy. The majority of early American Legion programs, from school awards for citizenship to a code of respect for the U.S. flag, sprang from the national security interest of understanding what America fights for when called to arms. The early Legion fiercely opposed threats to American liberty, democracy, law, and order. That included prejudice at home. At the Legion's 5th National Convention in 1923 in San Francisco, a resolution was passed firmly supporting equal rights and opportunities for all Americans without regard to race, color, creed, or class.
After the Pearl Harbor bombing of December 7, 1941, hundreds of thousands of Legionnaires re-entered military service. In January 1942, the American Legion called upon its entire membership to step up and help the nation as millions of men and women across the land prepared to enter World War II. At home, Legionnaires worked as air raid wardens, volunteer police officers, firefighters, and war effort supporters. The organization soon changed its constitution to admit World War II veterans and those currently serving, as it would later for the Korean War generation, Vietnam, Lebanon, Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, and beyond.
The American Legion, with an all-time high membership of over 3.3 million after World War II, continued to fight for a stronger and better prepared nation in the second half of the 20th century. The battle for universal military training came to a head on June 19, 1951, when President Harry Truman signed the Universal Military Training and Service Act. As American troops were fighting on the Korean Peninsula, the act soon became entangled in questions about authority, shelf life, and implementation. In 1952, the measure was returned to Congress for more study. The American Legion and many Legionnaire members of Congress angrily opposed the decision to keep studying UMT until 1955, when President Eisenhower signed the Reserve Forces Act, which expanded the U.S. Reserve component and gave the president power to call up to 1 million troops to active duty at any time.
So, the modern reserve sprang from the American Legion's persistence to achieve universal military training.
As the decades rolled by, the American Legion's national security position remained firmly based on the founding vision: peace through strength and preparedness, proper funding for defense, decent treatment of military personnel and their families, support for troops in harm's way. The American Legion's origins in the preparedness movement set the stage for a century of support for the U.S. Armed Forces. Through various efforts to ramp up and ramp down through multiple wartime conflicts, up to and including the global war on terrorism, the American Legion has fought for a strong nation, one that puts national security ahead of shifting political winds and media opinions about military service. The result of all this effort is a U.S. defense system that today stands ready, willing, and able to uphold its place as the strongest on the planet.